We have the freedom of speech in Europe and in Germany. Everyone can say what he wants, even if he is a billionaire. And what we do not accept is if this is supporting extreme right positions.
Greetings, friends. Morning in Berlin. No, not just a morning, but this uneasy, almost apocalyptic time when the political sky is clouded with tension. Everyone is discussing the latest loud statements, and the streets of the city are filled with whispers of impending conflicts. And here, straight from sunny California, Elon Musk, our omnipresent tech guru, leaps into action, commenting on the decisions of German leaders as if all the cards were dealt specifically to him. Supporting radicals from AfD? Well, of course, Musk, as always, pours oil into the fire, turning European politics into a real soap opera. Meanwhile, Germany, navigating the treacherous waters of its economy and barely holding its alliance together, finds itself in the center of a new geopolitical whirlwind. And now, Ursula von der Leyen, just recovering from her mysterious illness, unexpectedly embraces Friedrich Merz, leaving Olaf Scholz in a state, to put it mildly, of bewilderment. Is this a strategy, betrayal, or simply the last desperate attempt of a drowning person grasping at straws? From his observational perch, Musk is convinced that Germany deserves better than this endless political maneuvering. But is the country itself ready for such an awakening? Oh yes, don't forget to like. Things are about to heat up. Meanwhile, in Davos, Olaf Scholz himself, speaking at the World Economic Forum, couldn't resist commenting on Musk's interference in German politics. He emphasized that although freedom of speech exists in Germany, it is not intended for spreading far-right views. A direct response to the tech guru who loves to add fuel to the fire. Musk didn't take long to reply and fired back at Scholz. "Shame on Olaf Scholz," wrote Musk in response to Scholz's statement on freedom of speech in Germany, deliberately distorting the politician's name. It turned into something very close to buffoon and crap. They say trouble never comes alone. It arrives with a boisterous entourage. Ursula von der Leyen, a woman with a delicate grip and decades of experience behind the curtains of power, recently vanished from the radar, engulfed in the mystery of her hospitalization. Her diagnosis, severe pneumonia, was kept secret as though Europe itself feared admitting the vulnerability of one of its symbols. And then came Merz. Ursula's support for his candidacy is akin to Superman deciding to befriend Lex Luthor. Political veterans barely managed to shut their mouths in disbelief before the dust of this alliance settled. What happened since 2021, when she still kept her distance from such an alliance? Could it be that Europe is cracking at the seams, and the Germans, as the main breadwinners of the European Union, are now forced to hand out the last rations? Meanwhile, Musk, our distant observer, hurls thunder and lightning, accusing the elite of selling their souls for political survival. He doesn't believe in bureaucrats. He craves leaders. But where are they, these saviors on white horses? Germans are left asking, who will restore our former strength, economic power, and stability? Yet, for now, the only answer is silence. Here's the paradox. Von der Leyen, Merz, Scholz, none of them offers a clear vision for the future. Ursula, by betting on Merz, seems to have decided to challenge the very system that upheld the entire European bureaucracy. It's a risky game, one in which her name will now forever be linked to the successes or failures of this alliance. Friedrich Merz is, to put it mildly, a controversial figure. On one hand, he appears as a savior on a white horse, ready to cut through bureaucratic thickets and restore Germany's former economic glory. On the other hand, his inclination toward tougher measures worries those who cherish democratic traditions. The question, like a piano hidden in the bushes, hangs in the air. Will Merz become the one who rebuilds trust in politics, or will he throw more fuel onto the fire of societal division? And then there's our favorite tech tycoon, Elon Musk. His interference is far from mere armchair musings on politics. Like a seasoned player, he seeks to change the rules of the game, supporting radicals from AfD. This move is not just a challenge to traditional parties, but a blow to the very concept of consensus, which is the heart of European politics. His actions provoke a storm of emotions, and whether you're for or against him, indifference is not an option. In this new political battlefield, Germany, the central element of the European Union, seems stuck in a fog of uncertainty. Musk is right about one thing. The country needs leaders, But will they lead it out of the crisis or drag it down? That is the question. Germany is no longer just a country. It has become an entire chessboard. Every piece here plays by its own rules. Merz, bolstered by Ursula von der Leyen's support, is playing the reformers card, cutting bureaucracy, simplifying the tax system, and aiding small businesses. All this sounds like sweet music to voters' ears. But critics warn, behind the facade of rescue reforms, threats to democratic values may be lurking. Merz's position splits society into two camps, radical reformers and defenders of stability. Meanwhile, Olaf Scholz, our political man on the verge of a nervous breakdown, is struggling desperately to stay afloat, relying on a progressive agenda and the backing of socially oriented groups. His calls for justice grow louder, but even his allies are beginning to worry. Will these promises be enough to restore the people's trust? Against this backdrop, Musk refuses to sit still. His support for AfD, with their nationalist tendencies and criticism of migration policies, provokes a spectrum of emotions, from outrage to admiration. He doesn't just critique the system, he lays it all out clearly. Either Europe changes or it loses itself. Even some of his fans are beginning to wonder if he's pushing too far. Musk seems to have mastered the art of profiting from chaos, like a sculptor molding new opportunities from it. Meanwhile, German society teeters on the brink of polarization, like an acrobat on a tightrope about to snap. Trust in traditional parties is melting faster than ice cream on a scorching July day, while support for radical forces, both right and left, is rising like dough. Debates are heating up, and in this fire, some see a chance for change, while others fear it's the harbinger of an imminent system collapse. Now, every phrase spoken by politicians, every decision or step on the stage feels like it carries the weight of gold, sharpening the discourse about the future of Germany and the EU. Time is running out, leaving less room for mistakes, while the political elite, like tourists with a bad map, search for a way out of the deadlock. Meanwhile, Friedrich Merz, with his reformist slogans, continues to gain ground, but the division in society grows alongside his momentum. His supporters see him as the last hope for saving the German economy, while his opponents fear that his hardline course could destroy the delicate balance of democracy. His speeches evoke both applause and protests, vividly illustrating the rifts within the country. Olaf Scholz, on the other hand, seems caught between a rock and a hard place. His former allies are beginning to distance themselves, while radicals press harder than ever. Scholz is pushing his agenda through social programs and environmental reforms, but he faces resistance both at home and abroad. His reliance on international pacts and agreements for redistributing migration quotas has become a new target for criticism. Too many compromises, too few results. And then, Musk takes the stage once again, throwing down another challenge. His rhetoric grows sharper as he directly accuses the German elite of inaction and a lack of vision for the future. Musk organizes a series of public events to promote his ideas for radical reforms, including budget redistribution, reducing EU regulations, and establishing new trade alliances outside the bloc. His support for AfD reaches a new level, sparking outrage in Germany and other EU countries. Musk becomes a symbol of defiance against the system, forcing even his critics to acknowledge his influence. As a result, Germany becomes like a coiled spring, ready to snap at any moment. Society teeters on the brink of significant change, evidenced by mass protests, a sharp decline in trust in traditional parties, and the growing strength of radical movements. The political elite are forced to choose between preserving the status quo and embracing radical reforms. Meanwhile, Merz, Scholz, and Musk emerge as three key figures, each pulling the country in a different direction. The culmination of this struggle, whether desired or not, will lead to consequences that define Germany's future for years to come. After weeks of political tension and public discourse, the situation in the country finally begins to take shape. Friedrich Merz, having solidified his position among voters, has proposed a comprehensive set of reforms aimed at stimulating the economy and redefining relations with the EU. His program has attracted a significant number of supporters, but, unsurprisingly, has also drawn opposition. More moderate and progressive forces have begun to worry about a potential rollback of European values. Meanwhile, Olaf Scholz, under pressure from all sides, has tried to regain control of the narrative. His latest speeches have focused on strengthening support among environmentally conscious voters and the working class. However, his calls for unity and compromise sounded too weak against the backdrop of rising radical movements. For many voters, his strategy seemed less like a path to stability and more like a sign of weakness. Unsurprisingly, Elon Musk continued to shape public opinion with his statements and support for alternative political forces. His candid calls for a complete overhaul of the political elite stirred intense emotions, turning Musk into a symbol of defiance against the status quo. Society found itself divided. Some see him as a hero of change, while others regard him as a dangerous manipulator. By mid-autumn, public sentiment in Germany had reached a boiling point. Protests, rallies, and public debates engulfed cities, with the media tirelessly dissecting every detail of the political confrontation. Traditional parties began losing their grip on power, while radical forces gained momentum. New coalitions and unexpected alliances were forming, and even Europe began to feel the ripples of these changes. The future remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: Germany cannot return to the status quo. The political system has entered an era of profound transformation, one that will inevitably impact the entire European Union. Now, the critical question arises: can the leaders, whether Merz, Scholz, or an entirely new figure, seize this moment to propel the country to a new level, or will Germany plunge further into turbulence? We are entering a new era where the old rules no longer apply, and new ones are only just beginning to take shape. The nation's political landscape is undergoing fundamental changes, while society delves into deep contemplation about its future. The growing support for radical forces pushing for revolutionary change and the mounting pressure on traditional parties have revealed one undeniable truth. The stability that Germany once prided itself on was an illusion. Musk, whose involvement has sparked both outrage and inspiration, has become a catalyst for these changes. His sharp critiques, support for alternative movements, and open condemnation of EU bureaucracy have left no politician indifferent, forcing everyone to acknowledge that the old order is not eternal. Some view Musk as a kind of spiritual leader, capable of jolting a complacent society awake. Others see him as a dangerous threat to democratic foundations. But one thing cannot be denied: his influence on the European political scene is becoming increasingly evident, like an uninvited guest who decided to stay far longer than expected. Friedrich Merz and Olaf Scholz, despite employing vastly different approaches, find themselves in the same predicament. Both are compelled to adapt and navigate the complexities of this new political reality. For Merz, this is an opportunity to showcase his determination and prove that he's ready to implement tough but essential reforms. For Scholz, on the other hand, it's a chance to demonstrate that progressive values and stability can still resonate with voters. However, in this unfolding drama, no one is willing to take responsibility for what might happen to Germany if they fail. The future remains as foggy as an alpine morning, yet strangely it is within this uncertainty that the true potential for growth and change lies. Germany, the engine of Europe, finds itself at another crossroads: to risk everything for the sake of transformation, or to cling to this fragile equilibrium. And yet, the question of which path to choose is one that society seems hesitant to answer.